AM, good morning, girl. Today is the 9th of May, 2019. I hope you're doing well. Let's see. Good morning, first off. So, I am really loving having my braces off of my teeth. It just feels so nice to not have metal around my teeth, those metal brackets and ceramic brackets. Oh man. One thing I remember about having ceramic brackets is that they're, or at least the metal parts were really pokey. And the discomfort was continual. There were times, of course, where I forgot that I had them in. But invariably, sometime during the day, whether it was when I smiled or whether it was when I ate, I would get they would get pokey. They would get awful pokey. And it's kind of odd to just have that discomfort on a regular basis in that place. The human mouth is really sensitive. The skin on the inside of the mouth, the mucous membranes, they are extremely sensitive. And I wonder if the pokiness has left its mark somehow on the inside of my cheeks. I'm almost sure it has. Um, my brackets change their configuration basically every month, right? Every 5 weeks. That was the time duration between each appointment. And every time that happened, I got new pokies in different places. And so my cheeks had to adapt to the new pokey places. And when a piece of metal pokes into a mucous membrane, basically it digs a little hole, right? It creates depressions, right? Marks in my mucous membrane, and it's somewhat painful. There's inflammation that arises quite often, and there's the friction, right, between the mucous membrane and the pointy part, and then that has to heal over. And that actually might be an interesting little project or an interesting little curiosity, and that is just to check the inside of my cheeks and see how it might have changed over the years. It's actually kind of rough on the inside when I touch my cheeks with the pointy end of my tongue. I wonder how much of that was there before braces compared to how much after braces. Anyway, I'm so glad to have nice, sort of smooth teeth again. One thing I have also noticed is just how sharp my teeth are. They're like really sharp. That is, they're sort of angled. Everyone's teeth is angled to sort of take a bite out of something. And when you have braces sort of on the surfaces of your teeth, but at least my teeth seem thicker, right? At least to my tongue and to my cheeks. There was this thickness around my teeth. Now that those brackets are gone, my teeth feel like really thin, and they also feel sharp. So I'm really getting a sense of just how how bitey teeth can be. They're pretty bitey. And I keep wanting to use the word incisorly. They're very incisorly. Sharp, you know? They have a real purpose, and that is to rend and rent food and, chew it and chop it up. It's clear that that's what they're for now to me. So it's become clear. And what's kind of funny is, remember how a couple of days ago I was daydreaming really about all the foods that I would eat now that my braces were off. The fact is I haven't eaten any of them. I mean, of course I've had apples before, but I chose to cut the apples. And so it was apples and corn nuts. Those were the two things that I wanted to try to eat. And but I wanted to eat apples by just sort of biting into an apple, crunch, And here's the thing about that. I'm a little cautious about that for some reason. It's a mental game here. I sort of have to overcome the rule in my mind that says, "Oh, don't crunch apples like that." I need to override that rule that I've had for the last year and a half. I've also got this unreasonable fear that if I bite into something like really firm, like an apple, that somehow it'll change the position of my teeth or something. Doesn't make any sense. So basically what I've got to do is I have no idea that I had this. It's called a biting confidence, right? Like, I need to build my confidence when it comes to biting crunchy food. I haven't sort of bitten into crunchy food for a long time. And so, I don't know. I'm just not accustomed to biting into crunchy food. And I'm a little scared of biting into crunchy food. Isn't it funny? So I think this is something about the human brain. How, for who knows what reasons, we stop doing stuff, right? And then when it comes time to resume to do that stuff, no matter what it is, I can imagine that there's some uncertainty. There's a little anxiety, right? There's a little fear. I haven't done it in a long time. And it just arises out of nothingness, right? It's, it may express itself as a lack of confidence. So who knew that I had even crunching confidence? Like, for example, I haven't been crunching stuff. So I haven't been crunching things like ice, right, in my soda drinks because of my braces, right? I just don't crunch ice. Although I think before braces, I would crunch ice in my soda drinks every once in a while, but I haven't been crunching anything really for the last year and a half. Now I've got the ability to say crunch ice again. And I'm like, oh man, I'm not sure I want to crunch that ice. I think I may never crunch ice again. I know. I wonder, Em, are you an ice cruncher? Do you love the feel of crunching down on some cold ice crystals? It could be fun. I think I've also had a few crunchy experiences that weren't also fun. I know I've crunched down on ice and accidentally bit my tongue before. That doesn't happen very often. But yeah. So I need to build up my crunching confidence. And so I might have to start small, right? Baby steps. Maybe get some popcorn. Yeah. And some pretzels. Maybe some hard pretzels. Whoa, it's actually been a long time. So that's actually another thing that I haven't eaten in a long time, and that is hard pretzels. Now, I eat pretzels every day almost. I love pretzels. I love the salty, bready, flavor. I may not eat them every day, but I pretty much eat them pretty regularly. Once or twice a week would be reasonable for me. And that's the frequency of a person who really loves pretzels, once or twice a week, right? But I refrain from buying hard pretzels, obvious reasons, because, well, golly, with braces or brackets, definitely hard pretzels would be a problem. But, now I could probably eat some hard pretzels and get away with it. And honestly, yeah, when I imagine in my mind's eye eating hard pretzels, I'm a little uncertain. I've got to admit that. I'm just as uncertain crunching ice, just as uncertain eating an apple by biting into it, just as uncertain with eating corn nuts. I've got low crunching self-esteem. I need to build my crunching confidence. So maybe that's what I need to do. Maybe what I need to do is hey, Google, put hard pretzels on the shopping list.
Okay, I've added hard pretzels to your shopping list.
Hey, Google, add corn nuts to the shopping list.
Okay, I've added corn nuts to your shopping list.
All right. So I think what we've got to do is we've got to step up to the challenge of the crunchy challenge. I think that's what we need to do. I want to be wild and free when it comes to foods that I can choose to eat. Right. I don't want to be inhibited, encumbered. I don't want my freedom to be to be squashed. I would love to eat the whole spectrum of foods, from the softest, smoothest food to the most crunchy food out there. So I'm going to do what I can to sort of restore my confidence, restore my masculine confidence in crunchiness. And we'll see how that goes. One thing, too, that besides the crunchiness factor, one thing, too, that I've been admiring about my teeth is just kind of how white they are. They're kind of light. For a long time, I was debating whether I ought to whiten my teeth. I've never done it on purpose, right? This is my natural tooth color. I must admit that I'm impressed by like TV show personalities and movie stars with their white teeth, and it's actually a pretty easy formula to perform on oneself through various methods, over the counter or through the dentist. Not particularly hard. And I think so long as the additional whiteness is fairly natural looking, then shouldn't be a problem. But I've been looking at my teeth and thinking, man, they look pretty darn white to me. I may not do it. I may not do it. I was thinking about it, but I may not do it. I don't necessarily want my teeth to be the center of attention of my face anyway. Not necessarily. I'll have to consider it some more. But I think my teeth are pretty white, pretty white as they are. I think I'm pretty satisfied with them. We'll see. I'll give it more thought. One thing I've noticed that, and in terms of, say, when sort of my attraction to other people, I must admit that I have a sense that I'm more attracted to people with whiter teeth. Why that is, I don't know. I wonder what that is. I've been told, I think, that whiter teeth is an indicator of youthfulness. And my male brain, I think, is always sort of looking for keys to or those traits that indicate youthfulness. And I think that that is something that my brain looks at. But you know what? I think either men or women, I appreciate their beauty more when they have white teeth. Isn't that interesting? What is that all about? I wonder if that's a biological thing or whether that's a cultural thing. I don't know. I think I've heard that in some cultures, like say Russian culture or European culture, the brighter smile is considered almost saccharine fake. And hey, I can respect that thought. I think that idea has some merit. It's kind of interesting. Well, what's nice is that the decision probably doesn't matter very much in the end, right? Probably doesn't matter in a lot of ways. So, that's the truth. That's the truth about a lot of these procedures that people get that, improve their beauty and attractiveness and things like that. They're certainly optional. Sometimes helpful, sometimes not. Sometimes they just detract and from a person's appearance. Distract and detract. Sometimes that happens. A good example is Courtney Cox. Now, Courtney Cox is an actress who was on Friends, and when she was on, and Friends is a sitcom, a very popular sitcom in like the 80s and 90s, maybe early 2000s. I really liked the sitcom Friends. I thought it was a great show. I didn't watch it all very often. I tended to be more of a Seinfeld fan at the time. And so even today, I'm more of a Seinfeld fan than I am a Friends fan. But Courtney Cox and Jennifer Aniston were a great comedic duo who I admire for a lot of reasons. They're pretty amazing people, first of all. Second of all, they're extremely pretty. And Courtney Cox in particular, super duper pretty girl. And then she started getting these like Botox injections or whatever. I don't know what she did, but her appearance started changing pretty drastically. And honestly, in my view, she looked a little weird, a little off. Now, I still loved her. I think she's amazing. I still do. But, those procedures can get in the way, And in fact, I remember feeling sort of really sad. I mean, just personally, like really sad because, that source of beauty in my life has sort of left. Beauty is transitory, right? Its duration in time is limited. Anyway, I still get some feelings of sadness and loss for, Courtney Cox. On a scale from 1 to 10, she was definitely a 10. She was so pretty. Anyway, maybe I'll have to go back and look at some videos and photos, reminisce about how beautiful Courtney Cox was. There's something about human beings that appreciates beauty, and I'm not sure. I'm kind of interested in what the purpose of that trait is. All people, to my understanding, my belief is that pretty much all beauty all people have some appreciation for beauty. And they do say that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, which is a way of saying that beauty is subjective, which it totally is. Some people see beauty in different fish. Other people see beauty in different kinds of snakes. Others see beauty in, say, the makeup of a virus or a mathematical equation, or how should I say, picture of the night sky, right? And, I think some of us are drawn to different types of beauty. And, I think it's a really good question to sort of ask, how does this love of beauty originate? And, what is its purpose in the human brain? Because, to some extent, beauty is, I don't know, it's pretty arbitrary, right? We talk about the Western beauty standard, which in a lot of ways is really apparently pretty arbitrary. But I must admit that I am I've been sort of enculturated into the Western beauty standard, just like pretty much everyone else who follows mainstream media, right? Of any kind, magazines, television commercials, internet. That westernized beauty standard is real. And, it has an effect. And people make choices based on it. And, I think there's an aspect to romantic relationships that is focused on beauty for some, at least for men. But I think it probably applies to women too, even though I think it seems to be de-emphasized in culture for women. One thing that's true to me is that I think women have a very refined sense of beauty, maybe one that's even more refined than men in general. Even though men sort of are allowed in culture to sort of show appreciation of it, believe it or not, that's becoming less and less approved in culture. But, in order for women to sort of express a beautiful self, they have to be sort of keen enough to notice how their beauty levels change over time. And I think they really have a fine, intricate, delicate sense of what is more or less beautiful. I mean, there's that stereotypical description of, say, a woman getting prepared for a date or something like that, where she's standing in front of a mirror, making different choices for her dress, what she's going to wear, what pants she's going to wear, what shoes she's going to wear. This is a carefully calibrated process that I think demands full brain power, right? Sort of estimates about context and appropriateness, estimates about, there's a lot that goes into these calculations about what's more or less beautiful or pretty. And, I would guess that a part of our brain, part of what sort of has demanded that our brain is so large, I think it has to do with beauty. I would guess that is the case, that partly the reason our brains are so large is because we care about beauty. Now, I don't think that all animals care about beauty, like ants. I have a feeling that ants don't care about beauty. I have a feeling that insects in general don't care about beauty, but I could be quite mistaken, because I think birds do care about beauty. Why? Well, because I think birds are admirers of beauty. I guess you could say the same thing about bees, maybe. They're on the lookout for flowers with certain ultraviolet signatures, right? There's a linkage between beauty and survival. Yeah, there's something nature has instilled in us that sort of recognizes beauty and links it to our survival. Interestingly, I believe that beauty has survival value. Oh yeah. In fact, in my own mind, when I look at pretty people, almost invariably, if they're like some of the most beautiful people I've ever met, I automatically assume that their life is like a bed of roses. There are people who want to do stuff for them. They get all the awesome jobs. They even when they mess up, people aren't upset at them. Beauty offers a lot of advantages. In fact, there's, I think, what I'd call a beauty privilege. Whether you're a man or a woman, I think there's privilege related to beauty. And I think that there is a lack of privilege related to disfigurement. Oh yeah, any kind of drastic drop in beauty parameters, whatever that is, even if it's like really minor, like, you lost an eyebrow, or you got part of your ear chewed up or something like that, or you got a cleft lip or something, something super duper minor, but impactful. I think it can have serious impact on your survivability, like on your fitness in your environment. What a shame that is. I have a feeling that problems related to race also are linked to sort of beauty standards. Absolutely. And I think that's probably why racism is so intractable and so problematic in society, is because there's something about our biological makeup that makes beauty important and is linked to our fitness in our environment. I mean, that must be it, right? It must be it. Because let me tell you something about racism. It is such a trivial concern. If anyone spends any time at all focusing on the question of racism, I mean, it's clear that that it has no merit, right? No substance. Those arguments have no merit, no substance. I mean, the arguments make almost no sense if you really start to think about the logic of them. Racist arguments make no sense, especially for a person like me. My focus is on biology and science. I don't even think race is real. There's only one race, and that's the human race. I reject the whole notion of race. Now, there's certainly differences in skin color and bone structure, and who knows, all those genetically defined differences. But in my mind, when it comes to things like behavior, mental behavior, physical behavior, all of it is learned, by our environment. All behavior is learned. It's just the firing of neurons. It's in a what I'd call like a feedback response. And it's so mechanical, right? Behavior is just so absolutely mechanical and deterministic. And I'm also not necessarily a believer in free will. So my belief is that all behavior is conditioned by your environment. And it doesn't matter what your skin color is, or what your eye color is, or what your bone structure is. If you have neurons, those neurons are conditioned through feedback response by your environment. And it's environments that matter, right? That's what shapes behavior. It has nothing to do with skin color. And I also think it has nothing to do with economics. It's all feedback response. So this whole idea of race, at least to me, is completely transparent, right? I just don't see it. But, see, I'm just talking about problems of racism sort of from a biological perspective. Now, and even a psychological perspective. But I'm linking the problem of racism and why it's so intractable to, I guess, my idea that it must have something to do with brain and beauty. It must have something to do with linking beauty and fitness together. Something that evolutionarily our brains have sort of, I don't know, there's something we pick up on, our brains pick up on when it comes to differences. In group, out group. It must be about in group, out group, and relation to fitness. That's probably what it is. Here I am. I don't know. I'm just trying to make sense of the world that I see. That's all I'm trying to do. These are my guesses about what might be causing some of the issues. And why is the problem so intractable when the logical arguments are just so transparently dismissing of the whole idea of racism? I don't know, man. It's kind of funny, though. It just goes to show how amazing our brains are and how fallible they are at the same time. I really do get a sense that human brains are a work in progress. Absolutely. I think some people have this sense that brains are like the pinnacle, human brains are like the pinnacle of intelligence, and that they couldn't get any better. That's not what I see. I see brains that are really prone to making failures in rational thinking. In fact, I think I've found that, at least one of my guesses is that rational thinking actually declines with age. I think the most logical people are kids, right? There was even a TV show based on this idea that kids ask the darndest questions. And I love that. To me, that's an example. I mean, the fact that you can produce an entire television series, a comedy series about kids and the questions they ask, just makes it so apparent that kids are just super duper logical, and that really probably the pinnacle of logic and reason occurs at like ages 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. That's when I think human beings are at their logical best. And that's prior to them being sort of indoctrinated and enculturated completely. And when people are indoctrinated and enculturated completely, like when they're in their 40s or 50s or 60s or 70s, that's when they become the least logical and the least rational. In fact, older people, and even the very old in my mind, are some of the least logical and least rational people I know. I know. These are people who they've got, and it's apparent. Why? Here's why. Because, we talk about the generations, like the silent generation, the baby boomers, the Gen Xers, the millennials, and the Generation Z. Generation Z. Each one of these generations, there are shifts in values that occur over time, and it becomes apparent. And as people grow older, their views and biases and values basically don't change from when they were 20 or 30 years old. So when you're 60 or 70 or 80, you basically have 30, 40, 50-year-old values that the current culture doesn't appreciate anymore. And so, it's really clear that older people they're not adapting to the new cultural changes. Why don't older people adapt to the new cultural changes? You know, it probably has to do with brain science. There's something about as human beings, we probably get imprinted somehow with the values that we grew up with in our teens and in our 20s and 30s. I think they just make indelible marks on our behavior and ideas about how the world should work. And those indelible marks just don't change. And it gets harder to change as you grow older. A good example is this PC movement, right? I'm actually a strong advocate of PC. Yeah, the PC movement. And what I mean by that is, let's see if I can deconstruct that acronym. I'm not going to be able to do it. But I like PC because it seems to me those statements are, in general, more accurate and less disrespectful, more kind. And I think that's a good thing, I like, say, there's a distinction between policeman and police officer. A policeman, I think, rightly so, is slightly biased towards, say, masculine traits in police officers. And I like the word police officer better because it talks more about the word itself. The phrase indicates sort of social status, and it has nothing to do with gender, which I think is the appropriate, which I just think is more accurate. I think it's more honest, and I also think that it's less biased to call someone a police officer than call them a policeman. And then there's fireman as versus firefighter, right? I love that difference. Firefighters is what is the kind of word that you want to use to describe people who fight fires. They are firefighters. It's an indicator of their status in society. It's an indicator of their courage to fight fires and their skill, right? Without any reference to their gender, right? Whether they're a man or not. They're firefighters. It's more accurate. It's less biased. So, I mean, those are just two examples of why I love PC. I suppose you can go off the deep end. But I think quite often PC culture brings clarity and understanding. And I think it also happens to be more accurate. So I don't say policeman and fireman anymore, or mailman. Anyway, so what am I saying here? I'm talking about how much I like PC culture. Oh yeah, I'm talking about logic. That's right. And how kids seem to be more logical than adults. Yeah, that's for sure. I love how kids sort of pull apart arguments so logically. They're just so darn good at it. And I admit I'm not as good at logic today as I was 20, 30 years ago. There's something about a youthful mind that can tease apart an argument and pull apart its logic. I mean, as an adult, I'm actually quite skilled at it. But I mean, I do admire sort of the innocent questions that children ask, and I kind of wish I had that ability more often. I think it's a valuable skill. One thing that I hope to do is that I hope to do a better job of tracking modern culture as I grow up. I think that what happens to a lot of older people is they disconnect from society through retirement, things like this. They detach. They detach from society. Older people, I think, tend to detach. When they stop working, they start spending a lot of time at home. Maybe they're injured or sick, or maybe they get cancer or whatever. There's this period of isolation that older people go through. And, I also think it's actually fairly unnecessary. But when people get isolated, they become separated from the dominant cultural values. And even just a short amount of separation is a problem, you know? Anyway, I think one of the traits of intelligence, both emotional intelligence and just raw intelligence, is paying attention to context. That's really important to me. And I think the more refined a person is, when it comes to sort of calibrated ideas about context, the more intelligent they are. Absolutely. In fact, I'm finding that one of the key areas that I can seek to improve is a focus on cultural context. Sort of being culturally sensitive, sensitive not just to the season, but sensitive to the month, sensitive to the day, sensitive to different social conditions, social constructs. That emotional intelligence really shines. Yeah. There's something about contextual appropriateness that is an indicator of intelligence. Yeah. Yeah. And I think fashion probably plays a role in that. It's interesting how fashion, beauty, context, there's something about tracking changes, something about how intelligent people can really track changes in context, in social context. In fact, I really admire people who do that. For example, say a person who wears green on St. Patrick's Day or something like that. I think that's smart. That's intelligent. And that is an indicator of a person who's paying attention to themselves and other people. And I admire and respect that. I do. I respect that. To me, it takes a lot of energy and focus, concentration. Someone is paying attention. Even something as simple as, say, casual Fridays at the workplace. Absolutely. I admire people who sort of are able to pay attention to those changes in context. And I must say that I'm working on it. I'm working on it every day, getting better and better at sort of understanding and recognizing context. This is a hard skill. This is a tough skill to learn. It's a soft skill. There are people who don't pick up on these subtle changes in context. A good example is people who have autism, right? People who are on the autism spectrum. They don't pick up on some of the messages that people are expressing around them. And granted, these messages are really subtle, really powerfully subtle. That's why we need such big brains to pick up on these super subtle messages that people are expressing, and, develop our own cultural sensitivities and social sensitivities. Here's the thing, though. There is such a thing as overly sensitive people. These are people that read into other people's behavior more into the message than is actually there. And I think this actually happens a lot. And this is a big problem. I think it might be unrecognized, but I think that I probably fall into this category sometimes, where I mistakenly read more into a message that's being sent than truly is being sent. Yeah. This is why it's so important to be calibrated. And, that takes a lot of trial and error, a lot of focus on sort of the consequences of one's actions. You got to pay really strict attention. Here's the thing: human beings, our behavior is so varied, and the meanings are so, the meanings behind people's behavior can be surprising. So, surviving in a cultural context or in a social context is a real challenge. It takes a lot of experience. I know as I've grown older, I've gotten better at surviving in really tough social environments. And I'm proud of my ability to sort of survive in what I call like social deserts. Sometimes it's hard to get along in a certain context for whatever reason. Maybe the venue is too loud. Maybe the venue sort of is too hot or too cold. There are contexts when it's really tough to be sociable. And, I think I do a pretty good job, but there are areas that I'm weak. There are skills that I admire in other people, how they're able to sort of bridge gaps, right? Bridge connection gaps between people. I admire the skilled communicators, the skilled conversationalists that sort of, lubricate social situations. And I really admire their skills, and I hope to emulate them. So anyway, I'm getting to the close of my presentation right now. I just wanted to thank you, Em, for paying attention to what I've had to say today. And, I don't know about you, but I took my final exam in my welding class last night. And pretty sure I got 100% on the exam. Yeah, A+, which is normal for me. Maybe not 100%. I usually get 1, 2, or 3 wrong on any exam, no matter how hard I study. In fact, I was taking that final exam. When it was a fill in the bubble sheet. And every time I take one of those tests, I review the answers that I wrote in my original answers, just to make sure that I didn't mess up. And indeed, it happened. I checked it last night. I was double checking my answers, and indeed, in the place where I wanted to sort of fill in the A bubble, I filled in a D bubble. And it was such a surprise. I almost didn't recognize that it happened when I scanned through it. And then I noticed it, like, wait a second, that answer is way off. And I'm so glad that I went over my answers a second time and checked. I'm kind of curious what kind of brain problem. I wonder what kind of brain problem happened. Is it got a kind of dyslexia? What causes a problem like that, where while taking a test, I just fill in the exact wrong answer. It was supposed to be A, but I filled in D. And here's the problem. I knew the answer cold, in the sense that I was highly confident in the answer. There's no uncertainty about what the answer was. I just filled in a different blank than I ought to have. Good question. I don't know why it happened. I have a feeling that maybe I was distracted by something. Maybe it was just a thought that just occurred to me at the wrong time. well, when I was in the process of filling in the bubble, as you know, as my pencil was going for the trajectory for one bubble and another, or another, somehow my attention got distracted, and I made a different choice, sort of mid-flight, as my hand was going to mark one bubble instead of the other. I don't know what happened. I would actually kind of like to go back to sort of and ask where I was in my brain space when I made that choice of filling in the wrong bubble. I mean, what's that all about? Anyway, I'll have to puzzle about it a little more because I want to reduce the chances of it happening again. We'll see. Maybe I just need to be less distracted, less distractible. Anyway, I'm going to wrap up this session. I want to say thank you again for clicking that link and sharing some time with me today. I hope you have a wonderful day today and a wonderful week. I wish you good luck on your final exams. And I'm looking forward to perhaps sharing some summer vacation time with you. That would be wonderful. I would love that. I was thinking that maybe what we could do is we could go to Orchid Burgers. Maybe we could walk from your place to Orchid Burger and have some burgers and French fries, man. I wonder if they've got a vegan or vegetarian burger. It almost doesn't matter. I'll be flexible for you. Maybe what we can do is we can share a big old basket of French fries. Maybe we can get a nice Coke with some ice and I'll start chewing that ice. I'll figure some way to do it. Anyway, take care, girl. I love you. You're important to me. The thoughts that you think are important to me. And I hope you have a wonderful day. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.